Some things are easier to tell strangers on the internet than the people in your real life.
I'm Sierra.
And I'm Logan. Each week we read anonymous submissions based on one question.
Things people have never said out loud.
Until now. Let's get into it.
Hi guys, kicking off week 1. We appreciate all of your submissions. This week is things you haven't said to anybody else, but now you're telling us, and we're excited to share your stories. So kicking off with number 1. Go ahead, Logan.
Okay, for our first one, we have I don't like successful people, and I know it's because I am jealous that I'll never reach that kind of success. I'm a very jealous person, and I'm not sure if that makes me a bad person or not. Sierra, what are your thoughts?
So, first off, I think that we are all different and we all have something to give the universe, the world, the people around us. And I think if we were all the same, then life would be boring. So, we need to start kind of turning around and looking in the mirror and wondering like why we're jealous or what do they have that you don't have and what is stopping you from achieving that, you know? Those are my initial thoughts on it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I feel like this person is obviously very self aware. And I feel like jealousy is a thing that is internal. I don't necessarily think that when you're jealous of another person, that the other person is what's bothering you. It's more of a self-reflection thing. And I
Yeah.
feel like you need to take a step back, look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what is it that is making me, feel less than these people that I'm jealous of? So
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And again, we need to think of like what is it that you want? What is it that you don't have? And the problem isn't the other person. I feel like the problem lies in between. It's like what is stopping you from getting that? Whether it be
exactly.
finances, mindset, location, anything, if we can tackle that problem, I think that's where we should start.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, diving right in to number 2. This this one is short and sweet, but it makes me chuckle. This one says, "My husband is always right." End quote.
So I find this kind of humorous because personally, in my relationship, I am never wrong. My husband is always wrong. And I give this person kudos because I don't think even in an anonymous submission would I say that my husband is always right. Even when I'm wrong, I promise I'm right.
Yeah, I think the majority of partners would agree with you there. I think it's funny that you chose to submit this anonymously, but straightforward to the point. Somewhere out there you believe your husband's always right, so at least you can acknowledge that much.
Exactly. Okay, submission 3. I met my husband online. We have been together for 12 years now, but when we first met, we had no idea we were both married. Once I confessed, he did too. Soon after, he asked me to move across the country to be with him, and I actually did.
This one is wild to me because what are the odds that one, you meet somebody who's married and lying about it, but not only one, but for both of them to be doing the exact same thing, to meet each other, to both keep it a secret and then be like, cause I'm married and they're like, oh, me too. Like, how crazy is that? That is mind boggling to me that they both lied about the same thing.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I can look at this two different ways. I feel like I would need to know a little bit more of the backstory because now you can be married to somebody and be separated, and you can also be married and, you're married. So I kind of really feel like I need to know that aspect of it, but from what I'm reading, it sounds like you guys were like married, committed married, and
Yeah.
that's pretty wild. I will say, at least you guys you did end up leaving your other partners and staying together, and you guys have been together for 12 years, so that's awesome.
I can't
But I do
even.
not condone the cheating.
It's that word confessed for me, where they're like, once I confessed, I feel like it was a secret. I feel like they shouldn't have been doing it. And I feel like they were very much both in committed relationships when this took place. And that's just crazy to me. However, like you said, I'm glad to see that they did leave and they did get together instead of, continuing to hide. So hopefully, if you've been together for 12 years, I hope you guys are doing well. And it sounds like that was the right choice for both of you, for everyone involved. So that sounds good. All right, moving on to number 4. I fucking despise being in line behind seniors at any store while they're counting their dimes instead of breaking a bill.
So this is where my two different personalities kind of come in. I have definitely been behind an older gentleman who is going through his change bag, whipping out pennies and dimes, and you're just standing there like, what is going on? But also, the other side of me, I love an old person. They're just so sweet. Not all of them, but most of them are just so sweet. And I feel like we do need to have a little more patience with them. So I kind of go back and forth, but it's definitely valid to be annoyed because it's obnoxious.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a time and a place for annoyance. I think some people get annoyed because they have places to go and, it might be taking considerably long. Or on the other hand, there's people who just feel like what they're doing is more important than what somebody else is doing. And I think that's where it crosses a line of why it's, just chill out. Also, our brains went in 2 different places because when I first heard this story, I was thinking of seniors as in teenagers in high school. So I was trying to come up with in my brain, hey, we need to be patient. They're just kids. They're learning, all of this stuff. But then when you said the elderly, it totally made sense to me. We also need to be patient with them. And so I think either way you read this or either way it was meant to go, just be kind, I think. And just, I don't know. Yeah.
It costs $0 to be kind.
100% $0. Be patient. Life will move on. Life is not going to move on without you. You'll get to where you're going.
Yes. Okay, so for submission number 5, this one is a little long, so bear with me here. My wife and I had a baby using donor sperm. A friend of mine did the same with her wife and told me there's a possibility that there would be a Facebook group with the other dibblings, which is donor siblings. I looked it up after my baby was born and saw my donor had one and told my wife about it, and she was not on board with joining the group due to her being a very private person. Being I am the biological mother to our child, I'm curious if any of her dibblings have any health issues, wanted to see how many there were, what they look like, anything anyone would be curious about given this situation. Well, we're going through a divorce now, so I took it upon myself to join the group of parents and introduce myself and my child. After joining the group, I learned there's another mom in there in the same state as me, which I thought was crazy since most are on the West Coast, which I'm open to do. I refuse to tell her other mom because I almost feel guilty about going behind her back about it. But at the same time, I feel like it's my decision to make.
Ooh,
This one's
that
a
is
lot.
a lot. Yeah, that is a lot. And I am on the fence here because I am a nosy person. I can acknowledge that I am a nosy person and I want to know the tea. I want to know the deets. I also would be interested about, the health issues, what they looked like, who they were, what, how they were being raised, if that was what my child was, biologically related to. However, on the other hand, there is the other mother who, in my eyes, has the exact same amount of say and choice as this biological mother, where she expressed that she was uncomfortable. So it's hard to choose one or the other because it's where is the middle ground, I think I do disagree with the person writing this that it was her decision to make. I don't feel like it was just her decision to make. I feel like it should have been a mutual decision. And for her to say that she waited until the divorce because she knew and now she's just going to do it anyways, that kind of tells me that she knows what she's doing is wrong. So I don't know. That's where I'm going. I'm struggling with this one a bit because I don't know. You can look at it 2 ways.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the fence as well. I can completely respect and understand, being concerned about health issues and wanting to see your child's siblings and all of that, but it's the secrecy part that kind of like bothers me a little bit. When you're married to somebody, whether you guys are agreeing or disagreeing on something, you married each other. And when you did that, there was this sense of community where you two are supposed to work together. Even if you disagree, you need to work together to come to an agreement. And in this situation, I feel like the other mother made it, pretty clear they weren't comfortable with this. Again, it's more of just the secrecy part that really bothers me, but I can see where she's coming from as well. So
Well,
that's
and I think it's also good to note that while this is a same-sex marriage, I think people could see it differently as, I am a biological mother and she is, quote unquote, the other mother, but you two were married. You chose to have a child together. And the thing is, just as if people would look at a mom and a dad, actually, that child is biologically both of yours and you both have an equal say. I feel like the same should be for same sex marriages. Like, you are both mothers in the same way. I don't feel like biology here should trump one or the other. So I think that also goes into play because you actively made a choice to do this together. So I think both people could bend here a little bit where we can find a middle ground on how can we do this while, how can we do this research? How can we look this up? How can we find this information? One, without involving the child, because that's what it seems like the mother is uncomfortable with. And two, how can we do it in a way that keeps both of us comfort? I think there's another way to go about this than what happened, but I I don't
well,
know.
and kind of piggybacking off of what you said, I also feel I really agree with, the same sex marriage part because when a father and a mother have a child, it takes the biological like argument out of it. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to, if two women were to have a baby through IVF or two men were to have a baby through IVF, it wouldn't be fair to hold it over the other person's head saying, well, this
Yeah,
is not biologically your child type situation because
exactly.
it is. It is. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely agree with you there. I definitely agree. So moving on to number 6, I don't want to heal. I want everyone who wronged me to suddenly get it at 3 a.m. and feel sick.
So this one is pretty funny, and this might make me sound like an evil person, but forgiveness is very, very hard for me, especially when it is somebody who has done me extremely dirty. Like, in my personal life, there's been people who have hurt me, and it's taken years and years to heal from that. So I totally understand, like, I don't know, for instance, if you're scrolling on Facebook and you see this person pop up and they're living their best life and super happy and you're sitting there like, why is all this good stuff happening to this terrible person? So I get it, but also I feel like that takes so much energy out of you to hold on to so much hate, resentment, and it's better for you in the long run to just let it go. Just act like they don't even exist. If that's what you have to do, just act like they don't exist.
Yeah, I agree with you on like the comedic side and the kind of more internal side. Like, I think we all just wish that people would get, karma would hit them in the back and we'd be able to watch it. If it was a perfect world, I think we would all enjoy that. However, going back off what you were saying, I think the grudges that we hold and the anger we hold towards people affect us way more than it affects them. So if we can just kind of let that go and just focus on ourselves, it wouldn't matter if karma hit them or not. I truly believe in karma. I believe in vibes. I believe, what you put into the universe, you will, receive back tenfold. And so I don't necessarily think we have to put that karma into fruition. I think that it will come at the right time. We just need to be patient to, watch it happen. And as amazing as it would be to sit and watch it on TV and eat popcorn and watch someone get burnt, that's just not how it works. So
I think I agree completely. So, submission number 7. The truth I've never said. I have been holding on to my ex. I look at his page almost daily, all while being with somebody else. Even cheated multiple times with him. The ex is toxic, abusive, etc. I just feel like there is a trauma bond there that I can't get to go away.
man, this one's hard because I am not okay with cheating. However, I do understand that trauma bonds are insane to break. But if it's here's my take on it, not everybody has to agree, and that's okay. But I feel like if it's something that you can't necessarily get past or something you can't move forward from, you should not be in another relationship. Because one, that's not fair to your current partner who you're committed to. If you're saying that you are cheating multiple times with this person, that means you are in a committed relationship with them. That's not fair to them, but it's also not fair to you to be in a relationship where you're not feeling whole and complete. And I don't think you should be with either person, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also agree with the fact that if you genuinely are feeling all of these feelings towards your ex, you should not be in another relationship. I don't think that is benefiting you or the partner that you're currently with. I was in an abusive relationship for 3.5 years, and it took everything in me to leave that person. And even when I did, it felt like my whole world was just crashing down because of that trauma bond. You are so safe in a toxic and you feel safe in a toxic environment because that's what you're used to. That doesn't mean it's healthy or normal. It's you're just used to it. But it is not fair for you to kind of take that out on your new partner. Your new partner did not do this to you. So, kind of like Sierra said, I just think you should maybe kind of reevaluate the situation, um, and see where your head's really at. And maybe you just need to take some time for yourself, figure out who you are as a person, and I'll go from there.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And going off of kind of what you said, Logan, there's comfort in the chaos. Sometimes I think we get so wrapped up in this is what we're used to, this is the trauma, this is where we're at. And then when we come down here to baseline, which is like general community norm, that's not here. That doesn't mean that this is boring or lame or vanilla. That just means like we're calm and collected, but your soul kind of freaks out a little bit and gets all this anxiety. And it's like, oh my gosh, why aren't we panicking? Why aren't we struggling? Why am I not hanging on for dear life? And it is so hard to get out of that cycle of craving kind of that toxic energy.
Yeah.
It's almost uncomfortable. And I have completely been there. And it's hard. I read once, don't quote me on this, but the average person in a toxic relationship will go back 7 times before they can finally leave, like, for good.
Yeah.
So,
Also
it's
read that.
I I am sorry that you were in a toxic relationship. I am sorry that you had to experience that, but I do think that we don't need to continue the cycle by hurting the person that you're with now. We
I
need to how can we make changes? What can we do now to move forward rather than be stuck in the past? So, that is my take on it.
I completely agree.
Okay, moving on to submission 8. It says, I am still in love with my ex-husband, even though we both have already moved on with our lives and have our own separate families and children.
So this one I struggle with a little bit because, if I put myself in those shoes, I am married and I'm married to somebody who has an ex-wife. If
Mhm.
I were to ever find out, like, if, I don't know how I would find out if he was still in love with her or not. But if I were to find that out, my whole world would be broken. Like, I couldn't imagine him, marrying me, us making this whole life together, and then kind of finding out, like, you're still in love with, like, somebody from your past.
Yeah.
So I kind of struggle with that a little bit.
That's completely valid. I'm going to preface this by saying I have never been married. However, I do have children and I have been in longer committed relationships and I have been in love. I'm kind of on the fence and have a little different perspective on this because I am still in love with one of my exes. I love her very dearly and I don't think that I could ever not love her. But there were a lot of things that we experienced together, things that we learned, things that we shared. And it's not that I feel this sense of like in love as in a relationship. It's just a different type of love at this point because we aren't together. And so, especially, going back to let's say your husband, his children with his ex wife, it's a different type of love. I do think you can love someone without being with them and have no ill intentions. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
I can
think
completely
I
understand
think
her.
I think where it crosses the line is when it comes to intent. Do you intend to act on that? Are you fantasizing? Are you going behind your current partner's back to have these thoughts and have these feelings? But if it's just a sense of, I love this person and I have a deep care for them, I think that's okay.
Yeah, I was going to say it's more of how you act on it. I think if you have any intention on acting on it at all, that's where the problem kind of lies. So,
Yeah, we're like, I think, where like the secrets begin, and when you know that what you're doing is wrong, or you start to feel guilty because you're
yeah.
going to hurt somebody, that's kind of where it crosses the line. But in general, like, I still love some of my exes, and that's just how it is. I just have
Yeah.
deep care for them. Both can be true. Both can be true.
I can appreciate that. Okay, moving on to our final submission. I do just want to go ahead and give a trigger warning. This does involve SI, so and some mental health. And if that bothers you or if this is a sensitive subject for you, please feel free to, just skip the rest of the video. This is the last one. Number 9. I want to share my story, but I have always been afraid to do so. I suffer from depression, and in 2014, I tried to commit suicide and had a guardian angel who saved my life. I had to go to a mental hospital and go through therapy, but I am doing a lot better now. It was definitely a reality check.
That one, so straight off the bat, I'm going to say thank you for sharing that. I am sure that wasn't easy. And I think suicide and mental health need to be talked about more. I feel like a lot of people feel isolated when it comes to feeling helpless and isolated and in their head. I don't think we as a whole realize how many people are actually struggling with mental health and SI. I personally have been in a mental hospital before. I spent 4.5 months in a mental health rehab facilitation inpatient because I lost my shit. So I completely get that. I do think sharing your story is, how do I say this correctly? I don't want to come off any sort of way. I know speaking about it is hard and it is painful, but it is also powerful. It is so powerful when you can share your story and inspire others because going back to what I said just a couple minutes ago, like we all feel so alone. And I think if everything was like laid out on the table and there was no room for miscommunication or having blinders on our eyes, we would realize that so many people feel this way.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I have struggled with depression and anxiety, and I was also diagnosed with BPD a few years ago. And this started at a very young age, and I've noticed over the past couple years, I feel like it is becoming a broader topic that is being talked about, but it is still
Yes.
not being talked about enough. And I don't think it could ever be enough. There are so many people. I have been to 4 funerals from people that I had graduated with that have committed suicide, and I graduated in 2018, so not that long
So
ago.
sad.
And, I feel like there's just this sense of shame when people feel like they're, burdening people with their mental health, and
Mhm.
I really hate that because you should not feel shame. And I know you said you wanted to share a story, but you've been afraid to do that. You don't owe anybody your story at all. And if you don't ever want to tell it, you don't have to. But kind of like Sierra said, I do think people telling their stories and acknowledging that this is, pretty normal for the average person to feel this way, which is sad, but it could really help somebody. You just never know who it is going to reach, and it could save somebody's life, genuinely.
Yeah, that is so true. Going back kind of like what you said, it's the way we talk about it. It is the way that things are being shared. I think people need to be a lot more open and kind, like judgment needs to cease when it comes to mental health because nobody's the same. Everybody's different. Everybody is carrying something that no one else can see. And if you approach the day and new people with that mindset of, okay, they're going through something and it's one, none of my business, and two, it doesn't affect me, so it doesn't really matter. There's no reason to be rude. There's no reason to judge because why? So I don't know. I don't know.
I would
Definitely
rather
needs to.
I would rather hear, you know, I would rather go through a book and read 1,000 people's stories and listen to everybody talk about it than to go to one person's funeral because they felt
Yeah.
like they were alone. Like I
100%.
hate that there's so many people in the world that feel like they have nobody. And that's kind of why, I have a couple different platforms that are dedicated to mental health because I want people to know, like, I could be a complete stranger to you, but you can call me at 2 o'clock in the morning if you need to. Like,
I love that.
and there's a lot of people who feel that same way. I'm sure Sierra feels that same way. So just
Absolutely.
don't ever feel afraid to reach out to somebody, even if it is a stranger that you have found on the internet.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So thank you, Logan. Yeah, I think that was a good story to kind of tie it up and end our first episode. But we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your comments, and we want you guys to continue submitting stories. So down in the comments, connect with the stories. Tell us what you think. Tell us your opinions. Tell us if you think we're wrong. We are happy to hear it. But until next time, see you later.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next week with a new question and new secrets. Until then, tell no one but the internet.